Sports stories from the 419 in Northwest Ohio, brought to you by a voice you know. It's time to go around the area and around the Hearn.
Welcome to a new edition of Around the Hearn. A lot of things to get to and two great guests on the way as well. Joe Gatto from Impractical Jokers, Once Upon a Time, comes on to talk about his big shows coming up on April the 20th at the Lima Civic Center. There are still tickets available as of earlier this morning. Frank Hill, the now former Lima Central Catholic head coach, comes on as well and has a very in-depth conversation. This is pretty much what happens when he and I talk, that goes on for a while, but I promise you it is good if you get a chance to listen to the whole thing. Maybe break it up in segments. But some things to get to in the world of news, and there's a lot that has gone on in this last handful of weeks. The biggest maybe in the area in terms of girls basketball. Riley Sagester, the all-time leading three-point shooter in OHSA history in terms of made baskets. She was going to Marshall. Now she's going to Wright State. Marshall fired their head coach. She said, it's not going to work for me. Let's go to Wright State, so not that far from home. Speaking of coaching changes, there are a handful in the area. Minster named Chelsea McGee their new volleyball coach. Previously, she was the junior varsity coach for about the last 5 years. University of Northwestern Ohio brought a new man to the garage, and Richard Westerland was at Great Lakes Community College, or Great Lakes Christian College, rather, since 2018. And former Manchester University boss Seth Clark is now the head coach at Bluffton. Talked about Frank Hill, 219 and 106. Now, this time I got that right. In the interview, you'll hear it's wrong, and Frank knew the number right off the top of his head. Speaking of LCC, Carson Parker threw a no-hitter this week in a 5-inning win over Delphos Jefferson. 8 strikeouts and 59 pitches. He also had time to hit a grand slam. Last night, Coldwater got a record broken, and you really have to be doing something to break a record at Coldwater. Madison Wendell has been a guest of this show. We talk about Marshall University. That's where she's going. 15 strikeouts in an 8-0 win to become the all-time leader at Coldwater with 547. Through her first 4 games on the mound this year, she got 53 strikeouts and 3 shutouts. Oh, by the way, she also hit 2 two-run home runs in the game. It's a big week for pitching. St. John's Cam Elwer, pretty good with the basketball, also with the baseball. Threw a 2-hitter and a 6-0 shutout against Spencerville. Last night, Lincoln View moved to 5-0 and 1-0 in the Northwest Conference as they try to go 3 years in a row back to the D4 Finals. 14-2. One young man had 3 hits. Dane Ebel, all he did was put them all over the wall to count for 4 runs. Oh, and he had a triple in the win over Ada yesterday. Walk-offs? Yeah, we've got a ton of those this week. Delphos Jefferson, 3-2 in 8 innings over Spencerville. Crestview got a 2-1, a walk-off against Lipstick at the bottom of the 7th. So did Fort Loramie softball on Monday. Got a 3-2 victory over St. Henry. No hitters? Yep, those are going on too. Walpock's Taylor Eccles threw an 8-inning no-hitter and then scored the bases-loaded walk. Came in from third to beat Defiance, a team that was even with Ottawa Glendorf at 3-3 a couple of days ago, and then blew it open, ended up winning 12-3 or 12-4. Salina Seth Lonsway is going to start with the Eugene Emeralds out west in the High A Northwest League as he begins his campaign this year, trying to get through the minors and get up into the major leagues. Pair of commits. Luke Wessel from Van Wert. So he's going to go play baseball at St. Francis, which is pretty much a pipeline, not only to Van Wert, but through Northwest Ohio the last 5 or 6 years. And Olivia Matthews, an all-conference soccer standout in the Northwest Conference from Bluffton. She said, Heidelberg and Tiffin seems perfect for me to continue my experience. Got to see Coldwater in person last week. Corey Klenke got his first career home win. He became the first Cavalier head coach since Joe Reed in 1950 to start 3-0 Unfortunately for him, the Cavs got dominated yesterday by St. Henry 12-2. So that'll put a stop to that. Did get to go out there last week, though, and see Coldwater beat Shawnee. And can't say enough things about how cool it was. Obviously, not great circumstances. But to see the wives of the two head coaches that have passed away in the community in the last year throw out the first pitch. And it was a really neat thing to see. And Cavaliers responded with a big performance. Speaking of big performances, Izzy Zahn from Coldwater broke the 200-meter dash record set last week, or set in 1998, last weekend. And the 100-meter dash record set in 1988. She wasn't alive when either of those records were set. That just blows my mind. Natalie Brunswick from Fort Recovery said, I can do you one better. Broke the school record in 3,200 meters. Broken records? Is that what you like? Camille Hovis from Kalida. 122.8 on her throw on a Tuesday night. Broke her own school record. And responded to my tweet about that at like 2 a.m. I don't know why she was up. Couldn't sleep after the record, maybe. Continental's Reagan Marshall broke the school's long jump record on a Tuesday. And she had a better day jumping than what Lauren Achmoody had. Unfortunately, with her pole vault, it snapped in half. Thankfully, she was okay. Salina boys and girls win the Salina Invitational last weekend, beating OG by 2.5 on the girls' side and about 25 on the boys' side. OG boys and girls responded, though. Came back and took the team titles at Bath's Invitational yesterday to continue their pretty good season. And they had a lot of personal records broken, from what I'm told. New state polls out. The first week of the actual polls, Division 4, well represented in the area. Lincoln View 2, Roushey 4, Fort Loramie 9, Jackson Center 10, Patrick Henry 11, Kalida 15th, Minster 19th, Columbus Grove 20, Antwerp at 22, Macomb 24, tied with St. Henry, according to my buddy Tony Quach. If you see him, by the way, thank him for all he does. The other divisions, by the way, in Division 2, Wapak was number 3. They beat number 1, Defiance. Division 3 has Liberty Benton as the top team. Coldwater at 6, Indian Lake at 30, and Versailles, who's got a big game tomorrow with my buddy Scott Fry on K94 at noon. They actually play a doubleheader, but the first one on WKKI, Versailles and St. Mary's. Talked about WBL baseball. Defiance opened their WBL play by beating OG. Wapak beat Salina, so that'll put the Redskins at the top after 2 big wins this week. Softball had Wapak beating up on Salina and St. Mary's beating Bath. Good week for the Rider ladies. And maybe the biggest performance in softball this week outside of Madison Wendell. Addison Fisher, a sophomore at Wapak. 3 home runs, knocked in 9 in a 15-3 win over at New Bremen. That is kind of a look around. If you like to have something mentioned or if you've got a performance you think I should make sure to get on the show, please don't hesitate. Tweet me at Michael Hearn PBP. Make sure that I see it. I'm an easy person to find. When we come back, we'll talk Impractical Jokers and Lima and comedy and so much more with the great Joe Gatto and the one and only Frank Kill on the way as well here on Around the Hearn. Ottawa's favorite place for award-winning ribs and wings, including their great drink specials, is the Red Pig Inn at 1470 North Perry Street in Ottawa. Come in for their great daily lunch specials and their expanded new menu items. Stop in for Singo on Wednesdays and the WZOQ Zoo Crew Sports Talk Show. Be sure to check out their live entertainment on the weekends. Follow your favorite baseball teams and more on the big screen TVs. That's the Red Pig Inn, 1470 North Perry Street in Ottawa, 419-969-1002. Back now as the Lima Civic Center gets ready to bring you something pretty special coming up on April the 20th. 2 shows with Joe Gatto, and I was informed one of them's not different than the other, despite the fact that it's listed very kind of in an odd way. But, Joe, I have to ask you, have you ever been to Lima before?
I've never been to Lima before. And I was calling it Lima for a long time, and now I just got corrected, so I'm glad. But Ohio always comes out in a big way. The state of Ohio is always good to me. I've always had great fans, great shows there, no matter either doing the Jokers Live tour when I was a part of that or my solo tour. I've been through different parts of Ohio, and it's always been fantastic.
It's so funny because all the things I wrote down, one of them was I just wrote the word Lima, and I was just going to ask you how many times or how many people had said Lima, because it's a real big thing. Everybody in town, every time a performer or an athlete or whoever comes to town, just look at them and remind them, it's like the bean.
Like the bean, yeah. Is that where the bean comes from? Or are you guys named after the bean?
Right,
what happened with the bean in Ohio?
They just looked at Peru and they're like, that seems like a good thing for the middle of, Ohio.
This is giving me Peru vibes, middle Ohio.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing. I mean, the trees are the same, the climate's the same.
Exactly.
They have snow and all that. But I think you're coming at a good time. I mean, because you're right in the middle of April where you could experience all 4 seasons in one day. That's
what I'm looking for. I like to, I'm only gonna be there once. I want to jam everything in for the 2 shows. I'm hoping it's going to be stormy for the first show, and the second show will be a nice clear night, nice warm clear evening.
I think that you might not want to jinx that though, because the Civic Center has had a couple of performers over the years that have had bad luck that have made jokes like that, and the power went out. So for your sake, I hope that doesn't happen.
Oh, well, I'm very funny in the dark though.
My wife says I'm very good looking in the dark, but I think that's a whole other thing.
For sure.
It is, it's obviously a big event because I've seen a lot of buzz online. A lot of my friends are talking about how they're excited for you to come to town. Obviously, big fan of a TV and everything that you've done. When you kind of get into smaller cities, because it's not a huge venue, I mean, you've played big arenas. Does it matter to you, or is it one person listens, 5,000 people listen, 500,000 people? I'm going to make a joke. If they laugh, they laugh. Yeah.
That's more my take on it. I mean, I'm out there just to bring some joy to the people that want to experience it. And, if that happens to be, somebody in an arena or somebody in a comedy club, I mean, that's what I'm there to do. I live to make people laugh. So, what I do like, my favorite thing about this tour that I've done, that I've been put together, is to come to these smaller towns and play these theaters with such rich history. And, it's kind of, it's too, I'm not going to sell out, a stadium by myself, so it's like, but it's good that I'm like in this theater size. I get theaters where I feel home. Like this size crowd is really what most of my career has been, which has been really fun and interesting to do. It's intimate enough where I could do, get into the crowd and talk to people and get to meet the people, spend time after the show, get to town early enough and walk Main Street, get some, a coffee and a cupcake to walk around town with. It's always been, that's what I really like about this tour, to get to these different cities that I've been through that I would not even have known existed, really. So that's what I really like about Joe Gatto's Night of Comedy and the way we've put it together.
Well, I don't know that I would walk Main Street proper. In Lima, but if you do, you're a tougher dude than I am.
I'll find the right part of downtown to hang out in.
just walk around. Just people will be like, I think I know that guy.
I think it's funny because people do that as soon as I land. They're like, don't go there. Like, that's the first thing I hear. It's like, don't go. No, you're staying by the airport. Ooh, don't go outside.
Well, I would be surprised if in Lima, if the first place they tell you to go isn't Cupie.
Is what?
There's a really good burger place that Lima is known for. It's called Cupie. And it's actually not that far from where the Civic Center is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I normally hang out near wherever I'm performing, because I find like that's what's got a nice little mix of like either mom and pops or, little local fare or something like that. So.
Well, you might want to send somebody down there, because there will probably be a long line no matter what time you go.
Okay. Cool.
I was talking to Joe Gatto about his special coming up on April the 20th, 7 to 9:30. Tickets, I believe, still available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think at this point at the Civic Center box office. But it is kind of different. I mean, you can just kind of walk around town. Are you at that point where people still say crazy things to you? I mean, you guys have done a lot of things that are amusing over the years to people kind of come up and go, hey, do this or do that.
I know people recap things like I wasn't there for me a lot. They're like, hey, you remember the time when I was like, yeah, I was there. I did it. But for the most part, it really is like, I talk about this in the show. Like, people talk about me looking, you have to get recognized all the time. It happens, but I kind of just look familiar. They don't know where they see me from. Like, so I had one guy in an airport calling to me. He's like, hey, honey, that's the guy, the guy. And she didn't know who I was. And he was like, the guy with the 3 a-hole friends. And he came over and then he was like, you're one of the impossible pranksters. And I was like, yeah, that's me.
When you go to a show like this, do you just pull off of things that are going on in your life, or is it you have kind of a honey-do list in terms of you see something, you write it down, you kind of work piece it and go from there?
Yeah, when I built the hour, it was a little mix of both. Like I have stories that I wanted to tell and things I wanted to talk about. Of course, my time on Jokers has been such a big part of it. And, that's why people have come out to see me initially. So I want to make sure I pay homage to that and give the people what they want, a little bit of behind the scenes stories from that. And, just stories about my friendship with the guys, because of course it's such a big part of my life. It's impossible for me not to talk about that, And there's also other things that are like kind of perspective-y, but I'm more of a storyteller than I'm not up there, like, making jokes. I'm more telling, stories that have entertainment value built in and there's jokes around them. So that's kind of the way that I present. That's been my approach to stand up, really.
Now, did you find that for yourself kind of doing shows over the years, or did you maybe look at somebody stylistically and go, okay, this might work more for me?
Yeah, I mean, watching a lot of stand up made me realize what wouldn't work for me, I think. Because I'm not I haven't been
Cosby jokes, probably.
Yeah, I haven't been a traditional stand up in the fact where like, I think comedy is comedy though, right? Like I think like if you are funny and enjoy to make people laugh and know how to do it, you'll find your own way. So I think my voice is a mixture of kind of a commentary. I'm pretty animated up there because my body's always been a comedic weapon. I'm pretty energetic, kind of like a panther up there. I don't stop moving, so I've always been that. So I think it kind of just, you end up on that stage and you're like, okay, just go ahead and be funny. And that's how you find your way to do it. And for me, it really is like a mix of physical comedy with animated storytelling and, a little bit of joke telling mixed in.
With having kids, did that help you in terms of, I find myself with a 2-year-old of, I'll just say anything to her as long as I think it'll make her laugh of, okay, if that doesn't play with her, maybe this wouldn't play to a bigger audience.
My kids are a litmus test. Yeah, no, I will say halfway through the tour, I had gone on vacation with the kids and I took them to Disneyland, and I had a very funny thing happen, and I was like, oh, this might be a good story to tell. And now it's arguably the biggest story in my show. And it just happened with my son at Disneyland. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting because I hadn't really spoke about it for the first half of the tour. I didn't really have something that I thought was, what people would want to hear or how I was comfortable telling it. And the story is great. And I love telling it. And it really captures my son personality, my dynamic as a father, like things like that. So I think that's really cool to have them as an inspiration now, more so than as a target audience.
I think those are the best because that's the one where someone goes, no, you made part of that up.
Yeah. Like it's funny because pretty much every story I tell, my life has been so nutty. Like all the stories I tell are stories that have really happened to me. So I'm not out there really pontificating on things. It's like just a recounting of my crazy journey that has become my life, starting from, 15 years ago.
And like I said, I always find those the best because you can tell when a person, a performer, a comedian, I think is being honest versus when they're up there and they're kind of like, all right, maybe XYZ happened, but maybe they added a little bit of flair to it of, no, I'm pretty sure all that actually happened to that.
Yeah. You expand on the comedy in a way like to make it funnier, of course. I mean, but the story at the core is true. I mean, there's truth in comedy. That's, a major saying, and how I always had learned comedy. So I think that's always makes it easier, especially for me as a performer. It's like, oh, I'm just telling you something really funny and interesting that happened to me in a funny way.
What's been the best part of this, getting out on this tour so far?
Meeting the people. I mean, I do meet and greets after and stuff, and it's just always been great because now, especially the time we're coming out of the pandemic and things and seeing people and knowing it's been tough for a bunch of people, like that's been really great to be there for people and hear about that and have people come right up to me and be like, tell me their opening sentences. Like we have a laugh after they say it. They'll come up to me and be like, they're like, I have cancer. They don't even say hello. It's like, and I'm like, hi, it's like one of those things. And you're just there for people in a way. And it's like, you've gotten me through this and I'll hear about all these stories about like what I've done for them. And it's not lost on me. It's great to be there for people. And I've had a pretty rough go of the, past year and a little bit. So it's been nice to get out and laugh together. So I think that's my favorite part of this is to be out there in front of people, with people, laughing together for an hour and forgetting about how terrible life could be sometimes.
I assume a lot of it is, yeah, I was laying around during the pandemic a lot. And you were on my TV constantly.
Yep. Well, the big thing is like all hospitals play True TV, and True TV just basically marathons the Impractical Jokers. So everybody finds it like when they're in a bad spot, laid up in bed, and then they're laughing at it. So it's really just a way that it's such an entry point for so many people that when they're either in the hospital with somebody or in the hospital themselves, they find the show and they just watch it all the time and laugh. So it's really interesting that way.
I think that's a compliment.
Maybe I'm going to take it as one.
I think the only time that people are mad about True TV is when they can't find it for the college basketball tournament.
Yeah, that's right. It's March Madness. We really going to pop. It's like, who are these guys?
Wait, hold on. Is that a channel that those guys are on all the time?
Yeah.
Because my grandma does that. So
Go to the Joker's channel. That's it.
She knows that it's those guys on her TV again.
For sure.
I read a lot of things about you. The one thing that I thought was fascinating, I want to ask you about this. I read that you were made a Kentucky colonel.
Ah, yes, sir.
You're
welcome. Colonel Joe. Colonel Joe. Yeah. It was funny because they were like, we were in a show, I think it was in, might have been Louisville, but we were in Kentucky, and the guy at the venue was like, okay, you guys ready for the ceremony? And we're like, what? I was like, oh yeah, come on out. I'm like, oh, okay. And a guy came out like in a full suit thing. They had these plaques. They all got together. He read this thing and he like inaugurated, and they gave us these plaques that say, oh, we're Kentucky Colonels. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, what does this mean now? Can I just run these streets? Like, what's going on? Am I above the law? So I just started stealing candies from local stores. And I was like, sorry, I'm a colonel.
Right. Sorry, Colonel.
Yeah, it was great. Actually, for a while, Q made us call him Colonel Quinn. It was very funny.
I that part does not even surprise me. I thank you so much for doing this. I hope that people come out in droves, that they have to actually turn people away because there are so many.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, we had to add a second show. So, the people do want to come out there. So I'm excited to come out and have a great night with everybody there in Ohio.
Let me ask you that quickly before we go. How does that work? Do they call you and then go, hey, you got this one show. People bought a lot of tickets. Would you be willing to do another one?
Yeah, that's how it goes. Exactly. It's like, your ticket, you're sold out. Do you want to add in a second? And, I was like, could we do one? And we look at the time and it's like, well, it's a late show, but it'll be all right. Everybody will come through. So yeah, that's how we do it.
Just do it like the Garth Brooks thing where he goes on forever and then they have to actually kick people out to get the
That's it. Well, the late show, actually, I mean, I have a lot of people come to the early show and then come to the late one again, which it's fun too, because, people just spend the night. They're there already. Might as well.
That's not where I would choose to spend the night.
You'd much rather be watching Paw Patrol with your 2-year-old daughter.
Right. That's exactly. Well, I mean, I got to stop SpongeBob somehow.
You're right.
April 7th or April 20th at 7 and 9:30 at the Lima Civic Center. Thank you so much for coming on and for being a part of this.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
That's Joe Gatto. We're back with more here in just a couple of minutes.
Danny the Dealmaker. It's time for the Lee Kinsel Guarantee.
What's that, Eric?
At Lee Kinsel's, we guarantee our best price on every new Chevrolet and GMC. Every day. Always.
Fantastic, Eric.
We also guarantee that you get top dollar for your trade-in, too. No matter what condition it's in.
Man, oh man, that's an awesome guarantee, Eric.
I'm not done yet, Danny. Here at Lee Kinsel's in Banmore, we guarantee the best service after the sale you could ever get. You'll be so happy that you'll come back again and again whenever you need a new vehicle. And our top-notch service department guarantees they'll get your vehicle in and out as quickly as possible and running good as new.
Wow, Eric, that's a lot of guarantees. I'm surprised you're not also throwing in a guarantee that I'll remodel their kitchen, too.
Wait a minute. That's not a bad idea, Danny.
Oh, man. When am I going to learn to just keep my big trap shut?
Lee Kinsel GM Sales and Service in Van Wert, where they guarantee just about everything but the kitchen sink. Call 866-LEE-KINSEL, shop online at leekinsel.com, or stop in at 650 West Irvin Road, Van Wert.
Welcome back. The second most requested guest, or the second guest that's appeared here the most times, Frank Hill recently stepped down as head coach at Lima Central Catholic, and I reached out to the guy who's one ahead of you in Keith Utendorf. I just want to point this out. For some reason, he's been on the show 7 times, but he had really nice things to say to you, and I just want to share this to you. Frank is a dear friend, and he's always been kind to me and supportive of me and our program. A better person than a coach, and he's a damn good coach. I will miss him.
Well, that's very kind of Oot, and feelings are mutual. Obviously, Hearn, we're in this business what I would say, obviously a little longer than the average NFL running back, but when you're in it with the guys that are on the other side of the scores table, it's exciting. I mean, it's fun, and trust me, those guys are the ones I'm going to really truly miss. And even as much as most people think this, I am going to miss my relationships with my officials. I've gotten so many response from officials. Of course, they want me to come to the other side, and I said I don't belong on the dark side. You couldn't pay me enough to wear stripes, but the coaching aspect of everything, I'm going to truly miss, especially on a day-to-day basis with my players, with my coaches, but also the camaraderie that I always have with 95% of the coaches before the games. And the 5% that I don't get to have, that's not because it's my choice. It's because those 5% coaches that stay in the locker room, won't mention any names, but I don't know how they just stay in there and just kind of collaborate themselves. It's truly, those are the memories and the relationships I'm going to miss. But hey, never know. I might be on a sideline someday calling a game from somebody somewhere. So I plan on just stepping away for a while, and who knows how long.
13 years, 206, 110, a couple of state titles, but the Lima News interview, I thought...
Hey, fact checker, back it up.
That's what they said.
I know, it's 219 and 106.
Oh. How did they miss a whole season?
I don't know. I'm not sure where that information came from, but it's 219 and 106.
Well, the fact checkers on this show aren't very good. I'm just going to point that out.
That's because Avery hasn't made it to kindergarten yet.
Yeah, well, the last thing she's going to be reading is Frank Kill's bio. She's got other things to do. But
exactly.
Same article where they got that wrong, by the way. I thought
I know that.
I thought it was great because we've talked enough times and had a lot of honest conversations, and you were very open with them about the comment that stuck with me when I read it was, I was 3 games over 500 my last handful of years. Winning 2 state titles probably bought me a little bit of leeway. We weren't great. We could have been better was kind of where it seemed like you went. But you took it upon yourself of, I should have been better for us to be better. And I think that's a big thing that maybe doesn't get enough look in that article.
You know, when I took this program over 13 years ago, I took it over from a guy by the name of Bob Sagerson, which a lot of people know. Dude didn't have many losing seasons. And I think my talent pool the last couple of years, we should have been a lot better. Now, was our schedule a lot tougher? I can't say whether it was or it wasn't. But like this past year, with the late start in football, because of football, we just didn't turn the corner like I thought we would have. And then, it's really a reflection of what I was going through. When I say in those articles, I talk about finding my passion and finding my joy, and my closest inner circle, they knew I was never really happy or satisfied. And, obviously we won 5 of our last 6 games of the regular season. It was never good enough. And it didn't please me, never satisfied with it. And, when my wife, looks at me as I'm walking out, getting ready to go to a game, and she simply says, if you're going to be like this and you can't be happy and the man that I married and filled with joy, get out. It's not worth it. And I truly needed that voice of reason kind of to put me in place, because I faked it to make it a lot of times. And most people, didn't even know that was taking place. And I'm a pretty optimistic guy. I'm very positive a lot, most of the time. So I don't lead it on that people know that I'm miserable, I'm not happy, so it did come as a shock to most people. And for me, I was doing everything I could to kind of play it off like, we're going to be better. It's okay. I got to be positive, because if I'm not positive, who else is going to be? So, to think about that statistic of, 3 games over 500 the last 5 years. But if you take the statistics, from 2016, 16-17 season, I'm 8 games under 500, and that's unacceptable.
I got to see you guys twice this year. Drastically different games. Obviously, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but the loss on the 30th of December to Ottawa Glandorf at the Supreme Court, not an easy place. They turned out pretty good. And then in February,
they weren't too bad, were they?
No, I mean they were all right. I mean, it's kind of the thing, who'd they ever be, right? But
Yeah.
And then seeing you again at the Fieldhouse against Coldwater later in the year, it was fascinating to me to kind of not only watch your team kind of ebb and flow throughout the course of the season, because that OG game, I mean, that was early. They were clicking. You talked about you guys got a late start. You come out and you have 3 wins in your first 5. The weird thing about you have that massive away schedule with the rodeo in town, I think, is how that went at Monsignor Herr. But I loved your team late in the year in that Coldwater game was not going well for you at different points. And you brought the kids over at some point, must have pulled out the magic beans from your pocket. They came out like a completely different team and just continued to battle until the end, and he came out on the right side of it.
Well, that team you saw at Coldwater was basically the same team that was playing the first, 17 games. We were never clicking. When I say clicking, the last 6 games of the season, we were clicking. We were on all cylinders. I mean, beating Liberty Benton, beating Defiance, beating Arlington, beating Salina, those were good wins for us. But we played as a total unit. And that Coldwater game is like we reverted back to where we were in January. And that's the thing that, like, I struggled with is, like, why are we acting like this? Why are we playing like this? Like, and I as the coach, as the, as Matthews would say, the commander in chief, I took full responsibility for it. And I could not figure out why. I couldn't figure out, what we were doing, the reason why we're acting this way or playing this way. It's not like we changed up the rotation, because when we sat, Willie Foster, we became a better team, and then Willie became part of the rotation, and that's what we did against Coldwater, and we just were bad. And then obviously we're even, worse against Bluffton. So, we ended up, scraping enough together to beat Coldwater. But to me, it was one of those games again, I just felt total, I had a plan and my plan didn't work, wasn't even close. And I felt like, those were the moments where I'm like, all right, this is it. Like, I'm not the man for this job anymore. And as much as like I got the best out of my players, I felt like another coach might have success and do a better job.
And I would think it would be especially frustrating, too, because you talk about that winning streak going into the tournament about as well as you guys could have played. You knock off 2 teams who I think finished with maybe 5 combined losses in Liberty Benton and Defiance during that streak.
Right. I mean, we were playing so well. And I say as well as we could possibly play, because those were 2 of the better teams. I mean, as I looked at the end of the season, at one point we're 5-10, going into, the seeds, the drawing and everything. And I'm like, man, we'll be lucky to win 7 or 8 games. And to be able to finish the season at 10-11, because we had to cancel, for sales. So we finished the regular season at 10-11, like, okay, we're 1 game away from 500. We beat Coldwater. Things are going good. And just, it was almost too good to be true of what we were doing. And, I knew our next matchup, obviously, if we would have beat Bluffton, was OG. And I sarcastically say to people, I was like, well, losing to Bluffton saved 2 years of my life, because preparation for them is miserable. And it's just, it's a sad, when I say it's a sad situation that I was in, because me personally, like, I just wasn't happy. And that's the reason why I made that decision to step down. I haven't been happy for about 2 years. You know, before we were on air, Hearn, you know, we were talking about our main man, Aaron, and that guy meant the world to me. My dad was my world, and another fine lady, Vicky Monin, who I worked with for 18 years. She was my rock at school. And so losing those three people, they brought me joy every day. Like, you know, my mom, my wife, my kids, they still bring it to me. But when you lose that, it's so hard to replace. And obviously death just sucks. It's terrible. And it's hard. It's been hard on me. And you know, you would think winning and being around kids would like replace that and replenish it. Just didn't do it.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. I have struggled, you know, especially with what I do for a living. When I just go to work, it doesn't matter where I am. I laugh and I think of any building that I can walk into of Aaron, who is like family to me, of just, you know, hey, we laughed about this here, or hey, we did this here, or whatever. And I mean, I cried. I won't even. I'm not even going to hide this. We talked about this when we did the podcast, Remembering Aaron. I cried the first time I walked into LCC because you guys have that picture of Aaron up in the press box, and just kind of because of our relationship, I kind of made sure that I sat myself right underneath that picture, because I already knew that he was there critiquing me over my shoulder no matter what I was doing. So I just kind of thought, yeah, we might as well just actually let it happen. And I mean, that's something hard, because, you know, like you, I've lost a lot of people in the last 10 years that were big parts, but I went through that same phase of, I love what I do, but maybe I love it a little bit less, just because, you know, my mentor and my brother is gone, and it's not as much fun. So I totally understand what you're saying.
And but that, you know, losing that, and then I had to go to work every day and try to put on a front in front of, you know, 100 kids every day was hard for me, you know. And I'm blessed that my boss and the administration, the teachers that I work with, and the athletic department that I work with, you know, they were very supportive, always have been. You know, Stephanie Watkins and, you know, Mike Rumschlag have been just amazing people to work with. It's just something that, like, you know, when I have a potential opportunity coming up that maybe for a job came open, I'm like, you know what, this is kind of God's timing, and maybe I can walk out with my head high, be prideful and humbled at the same time, knowing that I'm walking out on my own terms. Because I said, you know, I mean, LCC, the tradition of basketball, deserves better. It needs to be better. Kids got to be better. And so maybe with a new coach at the helm, can turn it around, get them back to the program that I took over from, that I led to 2 state titles to, because there's a lot of talent on next year's team that could do some really good things. And I selfishly could have stuck around, but it would not have been fair to the kids.
I will ask this. First of all, it's crazy to me that when thinking about it, the last 30 plus years that LCC's only had 2 boys basketball coaches. But I'm not looking for a specific answer. I'm looking for a yes or a no, because I don't want to get into a whole thing and try to pull back on maybe something you don't want to talk about. But when you were on your way out, were you asked, or did you offer up who maybe you think could be that guy, the next guy?
You say, no one offered. No one asked me. Several people asked me, who do I think? And to be honest with you, I don't know. When I say that, like, I have 2 great assistants in Corey Wilson and Craig Mack. phenomenal guys, great assistant coaches. What I think of LCC head coach, and I say this because it's who I was groomed by, mentored by in terms of Bob Segerson, faith first, meaning very Catholic, devout Catholic, family oriented guy, and then T-Bird basketball. I don't know who's out there, and I don't know who would be willing to step into that type of role and put faith first, because a lot of guys in today's world, it's reversed. They put their career first, family second, and their faith last. And so for me, when I step down, even from both of my positions of teacher, coach, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I will for a second. Like, I did a lot. And that's probably one reason why I'm burned out. I'm tired, because people in today's world, I mean, you know this, the generation that we're living in is like, what am I getting paid? I don't get paid to do that. There's a lot of, first off, coaching, you don't go into it to make a career out of it in terms of being paid to pay your bills, especially at LCC. So I would love for someone to be able to come in who had the same type of drive and passion for their religion as much as I did, along with their family, and then to be able to transfer all that over to a team, because we're grooming young boys to become boys to men.
Motown
And
Philly back again.
Back again. Do a little bit. Yeah, absolutely.
That would have been Aaron's response too, by the way.
I was waiting for it. So for me, it's also, it's just, it's bittersweet. I mean, I hate stepping away, but I know that like this next senior class with Carson, Parker, and Billy Burke, and DeMar Foster, Jake Venarella, with Jake Neiman and Parker Judy. They got a great group of senior class coming back with Matthew Quatman and Willie Foster. I think they can do some really special things. I mean, I know OG's got White and Erford back, but I think LCC can do a lot of great things. And, one of the only few comments that I saw, the only negative comment I've seen on social media, and I try to stay off social media, but some guy out there is like, well, let's face it, the LCC they haven't had the winning ways lately. That's probably the real reason why you're stepping down. I'm like, no, not exactly, but good guess.
Someone's going to at me for this, and this is 100% a joke. Just to clarify this, because I bring this up because everyone says this. The next guy has to also be a good recruiter. Because that's everybody's thing, though.
But I think you have to be appealing and open to that, because let's face it, that is a major, I don't say, issue in today's world of high school sports. I mean, look at Richmond Heights. Clearly, there's something going on there. Legal, not legal, whatever. It is what it is. And I mean, we live in Lima, so we have a very select pool to choose from. And I've never, and I will go on record, I will take this to my grave, I have never recruited a single kid to walk in my building except Dan, Tez, and Trey to stay at LCC after we won in 2014. The only two kids I've ever recruited to stay at LCC.
But you weren't combing Spencerville, Allen East, Elida, Shawnee, and saying, hey, you got to come play at LCC.
No, actually, I did just the opposite. I called their coaches and said, hey, so-and-so is shadowing today, or so-and-so filled out an application today. You need to check on your kids. I did that twice with Matt Taylor and his kids, because the last thing I want to do is break my relationships, because my relationships with coaches, not to say are any more important or less with the kids, but I am not recruiting kids to come to LCC if they're at another school. Can't say that about other coaches, but that's the world. That's why I can lay my head on the pillow every night without any guilt whatsoever.
Well, I mean, they had to recruit you from Venedocia to go to Lincoln View, right? I imagine that, Crestview was knocking down the door.
That's in Lincoln View District. So, I mean, I did go to a Catholic school, K through 6. So that was in Van Wert. I went to St. Mary's Catholic School, and then I went to Lincoln View because that was my home school district. No recruiting there.
Okay, fine. Then they recruited the rest of those guys, I think, is how that went.
Oh, yeah. They definitely recruited Braden Pardon, Wes Dudgeon, Chad Pollock. And, now Kyle Ray may or may not have been recruited.
I mean, all you would have had to have done, though, was ask them if they want to stay at your house for a couple weeks and tell them that you can get some of those pork sandwiches in Venedocia.
That was only once a week or once a year.
It should be more times. If you're trying to recruit a kid now to Lincoln View, that should be exactly where you started. Maybe that's what Fish is doing.
Yeah, it's working.
To get all those Price kids by telling them we got more sausage for you.
Let all those Price kids live right around the corner where the sausage come from.
Well, now you're just giving it away. Yeah, they're probably tired of it. It's just like, I have a comedian on the show from Impractical Jokers, and I told him, hey, when you said you were going to Lima, did people tell you to go to Cupie? He's like, Cupie? I might have to look into this.
Not a Cupie fan. We'll just leave it at that.
Well, no, that's because you had Venedocia sausage growing up.
I did. You're right.
Thanks. Now they're never going to be a sponsor.
Well, they can always be a sponsor.
No, they won't be now.
I'll see what I can do. See if my salesman skills come out. I can
Maybe that's your next career.
It may or may not be my next career. Who knows?
I can't wait to get you one of those white hats that the grill cooks use.
I'd rather have the apron.
Oh, well, But it's just fascinating because getting to do this in broadcasting over the years, you get to meet a lot of different people. And I have jokingly told everyone for as long as I can remember, I don't like Frank Hill because he caused me a lot of headaches when I was a kid of watching him and his buddies come into the walk-in closet or the old closet and just try to rip that place down.
There's only so many closets you can walk into. And then when I walked in, but remember, I walked into that closet every time with my cousin on the other side. So it was always personal. So, my cousin Rocky never let me down. He never let me, forget who he was. And I mean, he trash talked more than anybody. So could let my little cousin Rock beat me.
That's because Rocky was a damn fine football player, and he was more worried about running everybody over.
Facts.
And to be fair, he ran over most people, and I think he's probably the reason why Lincoln View didn't have a football team at the time, or now. They just don't want to deal with trying to stop Rocky, yeah.
Yeah,
I thought about it, and he canceled it. He was like, no, we don't want to have to face that guy.
Right.
When you look back at, obviously, this entire tenure, you about 21 years, what is it? I mean, what do you have specific memories that stand out? I know that obviously the state championship games and with the relationships with the kids, but I mean, kind of, you're just able to sit back and go, wow, those couple of things, those really hit me on the nose.
Well, I remember, of course, I had zero background in teaching religion, and Father Hardigan hires me, and Bob Segerson walks in the office after my interview, and Seg goes, I want you to come to my office. And I remember going to his office, and here I am, a 22, 23-year-old kid who just recently married, new life, doesn't really know what direction he wants to go in. He's been in education, and I apply for a teaching job. I'm born and raised Catholic, but Seg takes me in his office and talks to me, and he's like, if you get this job, I want you on my staff. I'm like, man, I had a heck of a career at Lincoln View. I had a really good career at Defiance. How's Bob Segerson really know or even why would he want me on his staff?
Well, probably because he hasn't really sat and talked to you yet, so he doesn't really know you.
And the more and more that we hung out and coached the guy, we were probably more and more alike in terms of just very passionate. Of course, he's in his late 50s, early 60s by the time I come around. And then, he's grooming me to be the next coach, kind of secretly, if I stick around. And the one advice he always told me was, if you're going to go to any school, make sure you can go where you can win. And I always grew up knowing LCC was a winning school, winning tradition, and that's it, And so once that happened, I remember, my son was born about 4 years later, and the entire LCC community just rallied around us. It was 4 months early, and I'm telling you, it was a huge community thing, and just like, it was so awesome. And I became a golf coach. I won a state title with being a golf coach, and thinking like, we are, doing something special here. And, I took over for Matt Taylor after winning two state golf titles. Those were memorable moments that I always remember as a community, and people just rallied around you. And then when in 2010, when Seg wins his, state title and kind of walks away, in the sunset on a horse with his wife, it was so picture perfect. And I'm like, God, I hope I can have that someday. And then just being blessed, 4 years later, being a head coach, I always had to, pinch myself and remind myself, there are coaches that have coached for years that never get in this position. And I've been able to do it after 4. And then win my second after 6. And I'm like, this isn't even right. I'm not supposed to be in this position, but somehow, some way, God has put me in this position to be around these kids, around this community. And it was special. And I'll never forget that. But, the teaching aspect of it, a lot of great mentors, a lot of great, administrators allowing me to be, Frank Kill when, I'm not your holy roller priest that sits in front of class and basically, I am as real as what you see on the sideline is what you see in the classroom, to a point. And that's the great thing about LCC is they allowed me to be me, but also they were extremely supportive and encouraging, but also, they helped me be a better person, be a better man.
From 2009 in November and the start of the season until the end of the 16 season, you go 166-23. That's a heck of a run, first of all. But did it kind of make you laugh? Because Matthews and I had talked about this, about how you guys became not really the hunted isn't necessarily the right word, but that team where everybody is just, good Lord, we got to get these guys. We got to knock them off that perch. I mean, you had a 28-1 season, your worst season, I guess if you want to look at it that way. You go 19-4, the only mark where you don't win 20 games in that span. But you guys are number one with a bullet on everybody's list of, we just can't stand these guys because they just keep winning and they just keep doing it to us. I mean, what's that like from the inside?
Well, like Tyson said it this past week, I think in one of his articles, is that, the standard of winning and being excellent is not easy because it's the standard of always staying on top. Listening to, LeBron James talk about how the mark of excellence is not easy is tough because you have to continue to always be on your A game. And I think maybe that's why the burnout there was for me, because I was always had to be perfect.
Well, and because too, I would imagine, I mean, you go from 28-1 to the years you talk about, 6-17, 9-15. You have one winning season and two winning seasons in a couple of 500 years. After that, you're putting in the same amount of work. You're, giving out the same kind of advice, that kind of stuff. You're doing what you've always done. It's just not going your way. And I can see how that would be massively frustrating.
Oh, extremely frustrating. because I know where I've been and I know where I want to go. And unfortunately, and I think it's just the generation of kids, getting the generation of these kids to listen and to be coached. Because a lot of these kids, I see it on both schools, when I play. They think they know. They have a better understanding and a better, knowledge for the game. And I struggle with that. And I think that's the hardest component about teaching and coaching in today's world. And I don't know if it's a COVID thing, but these kids today, they think they have a deeper meaning and a deeper understanding for the game.
Well, now it's kind of a different thing too, obviously, than throughout your entire tenure and when you played, that now everybody's, a kid has a 20-point game and everybody's, talking them up on Twitter of, oh, that shot that you hit or that layup, now you're the best player. And it's a massively different thing because everything is a highlight reel now, or it's attempted that way instead of, all right, if we win, I win.
It is so hard to get kids to just understand when you see highlight films on, let's just say Instagram or Twitter, you don't know how bad that kid played. All they saw was the massive dunk or the 7 3-pointers. We didn't see the 25 3-pointers that he missed
or the 8 turnovers he had.
Facts, but that's the world. I have kids, or I've had kids in the past think that they're D1. I'm like, you don't understand how hard it is to be Division I. You're struggling to play Division III basketball in high school. And I can guarantee you have no idea the work ethic that those kids put in at the Division I, Division II, even the Division III NAI level. So the level of understanding and the level of athleticism and competitiveness is different. Kids nowadays, they don't watch basketball the way that we used to. Nowadays, they just look for the highlights.
Well, it's like the Cliff Notes version. It's just easier.
Yeah, it's the back in the day when you and I played Contra. It's the cheat code.
Up, down, left, A, B, A, start. Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, they want the easiest route possible, and there ain't no easy routes. If you want to be successful, I would love for kids to have a conversation with Martise, Dantes, Trey, Biggs. The hours that they put in before and after practice, school, is they don't want any of that. The gifts that they've been given, they just want to use right now, and think they're like, why do I have to do any more? I was dominant in 6th grade.
Right.
Oh, great. You were a foot taller than everybody in 6th grade too.
Well, I derailed this entire thing because this is, I think, a whole nother podcast on culture of things. But I laughed when I realized earlier on that we had an episode of this show that had both you and Matt Tabler on, and I made a joke about whichever one of you guys wins, obviously the other one has to, basically be their butler. And I might have stolen that from a Seinfeld episode, but you get to, unless you go back into coaching in the future, you get to hold that last one up because you guys beat Elida.
Well, it's funny. That's never came across Matt and I's conversations. Matt and I, we get together every Thursday night, and we call it round table. There's no table, there's no round thing, and it's just Matt and I, and we talk hoops. And last Thursday, after it was all over, the only thing he texts me, goes, tonight is a sad night because tonight is the last night. It will be the last night that you will be a coach. And I'm like, oh, that stinks. That's depressing, But as I said to him, it's like, and he did say it to me, but you'll always be coach to me. And I said that in my news article that, I'll still be coach to most kids. But I did think that, oh gosh, Tyson got me last. Boblet got me last. Doug Etzler got me last. You know, those
Keith
are
Utendorf
those
got,
are school.
you got him last.
Oh, he got me.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about the last one.
I was up 5. I was up 5 going to the fourth quarter, and we had a just meltdown, like a 2-year-old throws a fit.
Which is weird because it sounds like you're talking about Keith.
I didn't say anything about Keith throwing a fit.
Well, hey, he did. Trust me, he did that night.
Yeah, he may or may not have thrown a fit, but those are the moments, and those are the times and relationships that I will greatly miss. Is my fraternity of coaches.
Well, we have many ridiculous things that we could probably spend an hour on this show. I've always enjoyed having you on here. You're the second most frequent guest behind Keith Utendorf. I don't know why. He's number one. But I can't say thank you enough. I've loved getting to know you and getting to watch your teams, except when they beat my alma mater.
Well, I'm actually in the car right now, getting ready to take my beautiful wife to Cleveland to go to the home opener tomorrow. So should be a good time.
Go Jose, go Jose.
That's right. I can't wait. Should be a good time.
Well, thank you so much, my friend. And again, congratulations on everything and best of luck.
Well, Hearns, always a pleasure. And again, I can't thank you enough for our friendship with the media and just keeping it real. You know, it's one thing that, I'm as real as it gets. I'm genuine, and what you see, what you hear is what you get. And I know that's the same thing I get with you. So thank you, and I appreciate our friendship.
That's the free agent head coach in Frank Kill. More when we come back here in just a few. McSober Saloon in Coldwater at 880 East Main Street, where you can get a 3-item, 16-inch pizza every night for $11.99. And every Wednesday night, if it's wings you're craving, well, that's just $13.99.
For all you can eat.
Live entertainment every single weekend at McSober's. You can also stock up on hash browns, mini tacos, and grilled cheese and bacon cheeseburgers. If you're having a family party, a family gathering, or a graduation, give McSober's a call. They can accommodate you as well at 419-678-2602. That's McSober's in Coldwater, 880 East Main Street, Mercer County's #1 sports and entertainment bar. I know it's been a while back with this show, and I am so happy and so thankful that people listen and help out, want to be a part of this show as well. And I can't say enough good things about Frank Kill and Joe Gatto. Was so happy to be able to have those two guys on this week and just kind of get to sit and pick their brains. And I hope that you've enjoyed it. Please reach out to me and let me know what you thought about it, as well as it's a lot of work that goes into that and making sure that try to find things that are interesting, and obviously with Joe, maybe a little bit more outside of the world of sports than what we normally do. But hey, it's my show, right? I can do whatever I want. Check out anything local. Just be sure to support local and make sure to tell the kids good job and good luck. And hopefully I'll see you out soon. Thanks for listening. Have a great night and an even better tomorrow.
We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Around the Hearn. Come back next week for more local stories from the NWO. But until then, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Michael Hearn PBP for more great area content.